Of course, the main question that remains is what were these lines made for? What was their purpose? Why were they created? Because it was a lot of work to put these lines together. There are a number of suggested theories. We aren't 100% certain, but we have I'm going to say, a good idea of their primary use today. Let me begin with the earliest of these theories, and it was that these were astronomical markers. This was put forward by the lady who is depicted in the slides on the left. Her name is Maria Rika. She was a German who came to Peru in the 20th century, and she first saw the lines in the 1940s, became really enamored with these lines, and spent the rest of her life in Peru, not just studying them, which she did do, but also protecting them. And it's largely because of Maria Rika that the rest of the world became interested in these lines. She did publish on them and argued that they were aligned to the skies. The problem with Maria's ideas is that we can't really make her ideas work. We can't find a consistent alignment system for the Nazca lines. These images of Maria show her standing in one of the spirals. I'm guessing that's the monkey's tail, actually. The other one shows her with a broom. You might be wondering, what was she doing with a broom? Well, she was out there sweeping the lines. Today, no one is allowed to walk on these lines, but Maria Rika lovingly kept the lines in, I'm going to say, a very astonishing state of cleanliness during her lifetime. In addition to the theory that the lines are astronomical markers, we also have a few theories that are really off the wall. One of them is that these were created by ancient astronauts. Yes, folks, that's what I just said, ancient astronauts. The man who is most firmly associated with that theory is Eric Van Daniken, who published a number of books to link human creations on this planet by a number of cultures with folks from outer space. And he didn't miss on Nazca. This is one of the lines, just to show you. It's one of the birds that are created in on the Pampa. And what Van Daniken did was to take a portion of the birdie out of its context and explain that what we were really looking at, and this is the section right here, and this is the detail from his book, that what we're really looking at is not, in fact, the leg and joint of a bird, but brace yourselves, a place where outer space craft could actually land. Okay, we're going to land here, and then we're going to go up the runway, and we're going to park in the fingers of the bird. Okay, obviously you cannot do this logically to make that kind of argument. And today, all of Van Daniken's theories have been dismissed by scholars and academics. They are considered to be insulting because at the base of his selling points is the notion that these early Peruvian folks were not capable themselves of creating the lines. We know, in fact, that they were more than capable of creating the Nazca lines. In addition, there are a number of other interpretations for the lines. Some scholars have suggested that they could be dance lines, lines where people literally danced as a part of a ritual. They could also have been processional paths that people could have used as a part of the ritual performance they were undertaking. It's also been suggested that, particularly for the birds and the animals, that they might have been under the responsibility of individual clans. In other words, that they could have been clan animals, and it was the clan's responsibility to care for the walkways. Others recently have come along and suggested that the lines were used to plot the sun's position on the horizon in reference to the beginning and end of the rainy season. All of these are pretty clever and some of them are actually good ideas. But generally speaking, today we think that the lines almost certainly are associated specifically with water. And if we start with that as a foundation, maybe we can work something out beyond that. We say that in part because many of these lines actually form what is called ray centers, and this would be an example of that. The lines come together, and what do we find if we excavate the ray center? We find underground channels of water or canals that converge together and often join. At these race centers also, there is evidence of offerings, and those offerings include jugs as well as shells, both objects that actually are associated with water. Some of the lines also point in the direction of the mountains, and it's now important for me to remind us that in the desert area of the south coast of Peru, you don't get water from the skies. The water does not fall down as rain. You get water as a runoff from the mountains. So the mountains, which are divine in Peru anyway, the home of the gods or themselves gods, the mountains are actually the source of water. There are other references that I think make it easy to link the lines to water in some way. One of them would be the spirals, independent spiral designs, like the one I have here lower left, which also, remember, appeared in the tail of the monkey. These spiral shapes may reference the shapes of seashells, conch shells. If you look at the tip or the end of a conch shell, they may also reference the spiraling shapes that can be found in access points to underground water reservoirs. And that's what we're looking at right here. We literally would spiral down and go down and down and down until we could get to the level where the water is still maintained underneath the desert floor in order to protect it from evaporation. Some of the drawings also specifically can be associated with water and with rain. One of those is the spider that we're looking at right here. Even today in Bolivia and in portions of Peru, people associate spiders with the change of seasons and with the coming of the rains. I have, as perhaps a little personal evidence, in the lower corner on the left, a spider at my house. I think you all know that I live in the woods. Well, every end of summer, as we're moving into fall, I have a rather large spider or spiders, and they look for crevices to build a web to position themselves to survive as long as they can, protecting their eggs as the winter season arrives. In other words, I have witnessed spiders that are clearly linked to the change of seasons. So in the case of the desert floor, we think the change of seasons would reference the time when the rivers would begin to flow and the water would flow down from the Andes due to warmer temperatures. So we can be fairly confident that the lines are associated with water. It's also possible to go a step further and say that the lines were created very, very large in scale to be viewed from the air. Who's going to do the viewing? Well, perhaps it's the mountain gods. The images that I have on the screen right now include what it looks like on the left if you were on the ground looking at one of these lines. The two images on the right show us the foothills of the Andes, indicating that once you get up high, at the height of the mountain tops, you would actually, if you were divine, you would actually be able to read or to see these lines. So we think that they were created for purposes almost certainly of requesting water and encouraging that water would come from the mountain gods. It is also possible that these lines have a connection with shamanism, that the shaman who transforms himself might indeed, in the process of doing that, particularly after consuming a hallucinogenic substance, that the shaman often turns into another form of life. One of the prime choices would be a bird. So the shaman, who would be the intermediary between the living, that's us, and the realm of the spirits, could actually soar over these lines as a bird and see them. And that, in part, might be another dimension of the inspiration for these lines. The bottom line, however, we think today, is that the lines are associated with water. We don't know specifically how they were used, but we do believe that they were used for the purpose of ensuring the continuation of the supply of water to the desert region, which would have been required for life.